So what is it? You probably have that in your phone and in your camera if you own one. But have you ever wondered how does it work? Today I'm gonna be focusing mostly on the camera's image stabilization, as it is another episode of and that's what we're doing here. Alright, so maybe start with simple explanation of what it is. So in general, image stabilization helps with longer exposure times from hand. Helps with obviously blur. And to not say this over and over again, I'm just gonna be using shortcut OIS, or sometimes it's also called IS as an image stabilization, but saying is might be confusing, so I'm just gonna opt for OIS because this one stands from optical image stabilization. Alright, and generally requires some movement like panning or tilting, and it can be applied both for a sensor as well as the lens. And where is it? Obviously in cameras and phones and telescopes also. Some binoculars have this shit. But if we look at the in-camera ones, sensor moves. And similar technology you can find in smartphones. So let's say we have an enclosure. This enclosure includes magnets. And then we have a sensor inside that's just like moving and shaking according to the shakes the whole camera makes, therefore making the image stabilized. And this sensor also sits within an enclosure with, again, magnets inside, making the whole operation really smooth and seamless. If you have this type of stabilization in your phone, it's probably done like this. Modern cameras also use the similar system. So we take this little thingy and then it just moves like this inside the enclosure, making the image sharp. And the in-camera ones, most reliable and most basic, would be 2 stages. Bear with me, I'm gonna explain the stages as well, but for now I'm just gonna leave that info so it will make sense later. And then we also have, normally if you cut the lens in half, and if you watched other my videos you probably saw me drawing this shit, but more or less you have a bunch of different lenses in your lens that when you zoom onto or sharpen, they move back and forth. But if you add some components to it, then you can make the whole lens move all directions. Again, in accordance to your handshaking, because you don't have stable relationship. How can you have stable hands, right? And this glass moving thing can have 3 or 4 or even more stages of that shaking thingy. An in-lens one, as opposed to the in-camera one, can be turned off simply by just moving the button. Bunch of lenses have this on their own. I'm gonna give you like rundown of how they are called by different companies. But just hold on a moment, because now we're gonna explain stages. You might be thinking, is it similar to cancer? How should I know? I'm an artist, not a fucking doctor. But first, let's take a number of shutter speed. Let's take a high number, like 250. This is 1/250th of a second, so really fucking fast. Anything you shot like this, frozen permanently. And obviously, blur impossible. But usually it ain't that bright for that much of a shutter speed. So if we apply 1 stage of optical image stabilization, then go down by like 50%. So that means if you shot on 125, the shaking effect will be as like 250. So none. Because you ain't that shaky, alright? To move beyond this shit. But if we go down second stage, what do we get? That's right, half of the previous stuff. So 160. I know it's ain't perfect math, but trust me, in here you don't need that. Okay, so do you see the pattern now? If we go for the third stage, we're getting into too slow territory. Usually, safe shutter speed is around 160, 150, something like that. Because with this speed, you can take a normal photo from hand that won't be blurry unless you fucking shaky. But if you just take a photo of people eating at the table, for example, everyone will be frozen. Alright? Except little fucking children running around, but they always blurry. Unless it's a photo from 100 years ago, they probably dead there. Yeah, creepy fact about photo history. If you see child that's not blurred on the photo, they ain't alive. And then we go to fourth stage, which is wild, because at 1:15, try to take a photo without any image stabilization. It will be blurry as shit. So in theory, obviously here, if someone or something is moving, it will be blurred, not like in 1:250. But in general, it's safe to shoot from hand. That's why OIS is so fucking cool. Because normally it would be blurry as shit. And if you're wondering about digital image stabilization, because that's also a thing, trust me, it's shit. Why? Let me explain. Because let's say you have a nice photo or a video, because it's usually done in the video. It looks so fucking psychedelic now. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that in digital, your camera, phone, computer, whatever device you're doing it on, just cuts the part of the picture and then tries to move across already taken picture. Even if it's happening real time, the rule still kind of applies. It just stretches your whole image, creates this tiny fucking frame, and just moves it around opposed to the hand movements. So what that means is, let's say this big square is 180 by 180. So this is HD, right? But wait, if it crops from this HD image, this tiny frame, how much this tiny frame would be? Fucking 480p or even 360, depending on how much it tries to stabilize it. So if the camera claims to have electronic image stabilization, don't buy into the shit. Don't listen to the employee. He will say this is the best fucking digital. Don't fuck this shit. Because with these methods in camera sensors and inside of your lens, you can have all of this fucking cool shit without losing the quality. So your photo will be as huge as possible with as little blur as it can, basically. I hope now you understand the difference in between normal optical image stabilization and digital image stabilization, and you won't buy into this digital shit, especially nowadays that bunch of phones have this shit built in. Like literally, phones have this. Why camera wouldn't? But they still make them because it's fucking cheaper, bro. What do you think? Do you agree with me that optical image stabilization is OP and digital shit? Or maybe you have good experiences with digital one or bad. Let me know down in the comments. I want to know what you think about this whole idea, whole technology. Because I think it fucking rocks, dude, that we were able to figure this shit out somehow. Like, bro, this is sand, and this is fucking sand. We turned sand into cameras. What the fuck? And speaking of cameras and equipment, let me run you through different optical image stabilizations. So you have VR, which is not a virtual reality, it's vibration reduction. And this is what Nikon come up with all the way back in 1994, and they still do be using that shit. You can even find buttons for VR to turn it on and off on your Nikkor lens. If you ever wondered what the hell is this, there you go. Then we have IS. This is Image Stabilizer by Canon. That figured this shit in 1995. Then we have as name, which is anti-shake. That was Minolta. Figured this shit out in 2003. So as you can see, that ain't that old of a technology, I guess. It's like 30 years old. Then we had IBIS, in body image stabilization from Olympus. That clearly suggests it is the camera built-in one. Then we have Mega OIS, or Power, that Panasonic and Leica were using for some reason. Guess who calls it optical image stabilization? The simplest you can get. That's right, Fujifilm. They always do this shit. What if you took the image part of the name and just had optical stabilization? Then you would be like Sigma. But Sigma, being Sigma, didn't stop on one name. They also have VC, that is translated as vibration compensation, which is insanely good name in my opinion because it fucking rhymes and shit. But that does sound a little bit like they took some inspiration from Nikon. Then we also had SR, which is shake reduction from Pentax. And the absolute best at the end, abysmal Sony schemes for naming optical image stabilization. And I think they were cooking. They were cooking, but in the wrong fucking pot, bro. Because they started as OSS, that was optical steady shot. And you're like, okay, nothing weird, nothing wrong, nothing abysmal in that. But then they decided to ditch the word optical. So they had an SS, which meant steady shot. Like, this is wrong on so many levels. Also, it's Japan. Then probably someone like realized or read too much about Übermensch and decided to add another S to an equation. So it's like SSS, which means super steady shot. Then Sony took some inspiration from Minolta's technology, from the anti-shake one, and then they renamed it to SSI, steady shot inside. They fucking knew what they were doing. First of all, it's Japan. Second of all, SS and steady shooting. Alright, never mind. Like, comment, and subscribe and all of the crap. And stay tuned for another episode of Photo Techniques. Because in another episode, I'm gonna explain light measurements. How should you measure light? What the fuck is the light measurement in general? And why photographers have just this little gray piece of paper everywhere they go. And why gray is such a fucking cool color. To the point companies make millions on little gray squares. Go check out the whole playlist. Maybe you'll learn something.